Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Haven't seen any road trip stories on here. Let's change that, shall we? I'll start. Moving cross-country from Washington State to North Carolina. Driving alone and in a big-ass box truck. First time driving alone that distance, but needs to be done because I'm not hiring movers. It's early March, still cold as hell. First day of driving isn't too bad. I made it into Montana around 12 a.m. the first night. Don't want to blow cash on a motel, so I pull over into a rest stop for some sleep. Get maybe 2 hours of sleep, decide to say screw it, and head back on the road. I am quite literally the only vehicle on the highway as far as I can see, which is a long way. Mind you, this is Montana, and I'm going through the passes at this point, so that makes sense. About an hour from the rest stop, I see lights up ahead on the road, and I tell myself, hell yeah, because I haven't seen anyone in 3 hours' time. Get a little closer. The lights suddenly go out. Think to myself that maybe it's someone having car trouble and their battery died or something. Still, I'm not stupid, so I make sure the pistol I carry with me is within grabbing distance. Get close enough to where the headlights on my truck illuminate the spot where the lights were. Not a damn thing is around. Chalk it up to me being exhausted. Keep driving, though I am a little spooked. About another 15 minutes pass, and I notice lights in the side mirror coming up on me fast. The creepiness factor ramps up a notch, because I literally had no warning. The lights kinda just popped into being. Speed up a little, though if you have any experience with a fully loaded box truck, you know they aren't exactly speedsters. The lights seem to speed up with me and tail me. Continues like this until about an hour before sunrise. Then just as fast as they appeared, they're gone. By this point, I say screw it. Take the next exit and find a hotel. The town is a little old mining town, I think. Really old buildings, lots of cowboy-looking people and farmers. Grab breakfast, grab a cheap hotel, and pass out until about 9 that night. Fuel up, grab some snacks, check my map. No GPS, so sue me. And head out. By this point, I'm just now hitting the flatlands part of Montana. Well, the flatter part. Plains to the right, plains to the left, and a full moon to illuminate everything. There's still snow in a lot of places, so I'm trying to be careful in case of black ice on the road. Driving for a few hours, right back to no vehicles on the road, so I pull over due to nature calling. Doing my business, I'm looking out across the plains when I see movement over one of the patches of snow. Figure it's some deer, continue on my business, until whatever is moving stops dead like it's frozen. At this point, I'm done, but I'm curious to see what the hell it is. It stands there for a while, unmoving, then bolts off towards a stand of trees. I turn and head for the truck when I hear a god-awful noise like an animal getting attacked badly. I literally say aloud, screw that noise, and hop my ass back into the cab of the truck, turn it over, and speed my ass up the road. Tell myself I'm just tired from the trip up, and not being used to driving this distance alone. About an hour later, take another break. See movement in the field about 150 yards off from where I am. Remember what happened earlier. I focus and watch the area. Something bolts from the little bit of cover in that area and takes off on all fours. But the gate is weird. Mine shuts off instantly, and I run over to the door and hop inside, go to start it up. But all I get is a messed up engine noise. Pull out the phone, notice that I actually have service, and call the rental place. While I'm waiting for an answer, I'm looking out the windows and watching for whatever the thing was. Finally get an answer, and while they're looking up where I am, the truck had GPS. I see the thing kinda just loping around in the field. Weird movement, like its back is messed up. Person on the other end informs me it'll be about 4 hours before they can get someone out to me. Screw my life. Tell them to hurry it up. Guess I sounded weird because the person asked me if everything was okay. Remember blurting out that there was a weird animal in the field by me, and that I was kind of spooked by it. Person laughs and says I must have not seen a deer before, then hangs up. At this point, I'm pissed that the truck broke down, and that the asshole pretty much called me a dumbass. Haven't been looking at the thing. Go to look at it, and it's gone. Lock both doors, turn the battery on so I at least have lights, and wait. About an hour passes when I see lights coming from behind, and fast. Think to myself, hell yeah, I'm gonna kiss that tow driver. It's March in Montana, and I'm cold as balls. Lights get maybe a football field's length from me, then cut out. Warning bells start going off in my head, so I grab my pistol, chamber around, and make sure I have a spare mag, just in case it's crazy hillbillies looking for love. Sit there for what seems like forever. Then the lights come back on, except now they're down in the field. At this point, I'm almost certain it's crazy hillbillies, up until the weird animal thing comes walking out towards the lights. It looked somewhat similar to Pick, except without the tails and spikes, and fur everywhere. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell did I smoke? Then remember I don't smoke at all. The thing kind of walks into the lights, and a few seconds later, they just vanish. At this point, I say screw this, and start trying to turn the damn engine over, because I want away from whatever just happened. Of course, this fails, so I say screw it, and sit there. Sitting there for a good 10 minutes when the lights appear in front of me, and coming fast as hell. Too fast for me to really do anything, so I kind of just accept my fate that I'm going to die in a crash or something. Literally blackout. Get woken up by someone beating on the driver door. The sun is up. Get out. Feel like shit and hurt, like I'd been through 12 rounds of a fight. Guy says he'd been banging on the door for a good half hour. Doesn't make sense that I didn't wake up cause I'm a light sleeper. Also asks what the hell I did to the back of the truck and the tires. I'm completely confused until he shows me. All the tires are messed up, like someone took straight razors to them, and the back of the truck where the main hatch is just broken all to hell. Door open and loads of my stuff scattered out around the back. Explained to him that it wasn't me, but he's having none of it. He and his partner help me get up as much of my stuff as I can, secure the door, then they hook it up to the truck and pull her up. We get into town, and they take me to the sheriff's office for vandalism of private property. Have to sit in some podunk little station and explain to this no-nonsense looking guy what happened. He buys it, says I'm not the first person to report stuff like that. Have to stay in town for a few days until I can get a new truck and transfer all my stuff. So I put my time to good use asking around. Apparently, for as long as there had been a road around there, people had been reporting weird stuff like that. When I asked about the animal, they said it had something to do with the native tribe in the area. Get a new truck, hightail it out of there during the day. Sadly, that's all to the story. The rest of the trip was uneventful, besides a few weird lights in the sky and in a few forests I passed. And I apologize for the lackluster ending.
Summer after my first semester of college. Spend 2 weeks road tripping alone, from the Midwest out towards Washington and back again. Towards the end of the trip, I'm pretty beat, and I pull over at a rest area to sleep. The place doesn't look great, but I'm too tired to give a damn. Still, since I'm the only vehicle out there and I don't know the area, I set an alarm, I'll sleep a couple of hours, and then head out to find civilization. 2 hours later, my alarm goes off. I set it to buzz instead of ring, and the first thing I notice is someone standing by the window. I freeze. I can see a gun leaning against the window too. Whoever it is, they were dressed all in black, is holding the gun up but not pointing it at me. I was sleeping on a thick pillow so I could just see over the dash, and noticed another person all in black, also holding a gun, standing in front of my truck, but facing towards the rest area. I look and see what appears to be 2 more individuals, all in black, all holding guns, leading a bunch of kids into the woods. I noticed the guy at the window turn to look inside. Looks right at me. Not sure if he saw me awake, but I shut my eyes just enough so that he'd think I was. After a while, I heard the guy walk off. I open my eyes and him and the other guy in front of my truck are disappearing into the woods. Do a quick scan of the area to make sure I'm alone. Then, when I feel it's safe, I take off. Call the police and tell them what I saw. Never heard back about it.
Not a road trip story per se, but as there's no other Greentext thread up, I'm going to drop this one here. Summer of '99. Be a young boy, 12 years old, spending the summer with my aunt and uncle in rural Texas. One day, my uncle took me fishing in the nearby lake. We're having a great time just off the shore, catching fish and enjoying each other's company. I always loved going fishing with my uncle because he's a great storyteller and really funny. The day starts to wind down and I notice him getting quieter and quieter. He begins to glance around nervously. It gets to the point that when I try to talk, he shushes me. I try to listen and realize I hear something big moving in the trees. Uncle whispers, "Don't move." I freeze. Then something comes out of the trees on the other side of the lake. I say something because I don't see it. I just see the tree part and jostle like something pushed its way through. Then I almost dropped my pole as I heard this thing, whatever it was, start drinking from the lake. I could hear it lapping up the water as clear as day, and I could even see the water itself splashing. But I couldn't see whatever it was that was drinking it. Uncle whispers, "Leave the pole, get in the truck now." He didn't have to tell me twice. We both turned and ran as fast as we could to the truck. Uncle cranks the ignition and goes flying back onto the highway. Somehow I was too chicken to look back even after we were on the highway, but I was trembling the whole time thinking, what if that thing chases after us? Eventually, though, my uncle seems to relax and heaves a huge sigh. He puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Hey, we're okay," like he can't believe it. Then he tells me not to tell my aunt what happened. Otherwise, she'll complain anytime I need to get out of the house and go fishing. Keck, I miss my uncle.
Taking a little road trip to see a band play in Chicago. About a 20-hour drive. Have to drive through several states, one of them being Tennessee. I don't recall exactly which city-town, but we found ourselves on a rural highway with no one else on the road. We're moving about 30 miles per hour, speed limit, and the highway is straight as an arrow. We see a figure up ahead and we all notice it right away because it looks like an obvious ghost, very wispy and translucent. My first thought was it was a plastic bag, but the closer we got, the more human it looked. When we were maybe 10 feet away from where it stood off the side of the road, it just vanished. All of us saw it. The figure was there one moment and gone the next. Needless to say, we all lost our minds and I stopped the car. We got out and looked around, but didn't see anything. We stood on the exact spot where we'd seen the ghost and felt a genuine chill. This was in April, and very warm otherwise. Eventually, we got back in the car and our trip continued as normal. But traveling back home, we all decided to revisit the spot where we'd seen the ghost. We're back on the right highway, we think, and we're trying to remember the precise spot, arguing with one another. We hear a loud pop. One of our tires blew out. Pull over to change it. I'm very annoyed. But also we're all a little spooked because we're pretty sure this is the same area where we'd seen the ghost. Joke about it being some kind of sign while I throw on the spare, then we drive off. Never changed a tire so fast in my life. This was over 15 years ago, but I want to say we were just outside of Memphis.
Since this is the anniversary of when this happened a few years ago, I thought I'd finally tell this story so a few people can hear it. Be living in Northern Ontario small town. Friends in the small town always trying to spook each other with extravagant trips to abandoned places. Mostly local barns or cabins and whatnot, never anything too big. One dumbass friend suggested we go bigger. They find an abandoned prison far away from where we live. Not far enough to call it a road trip, but it was still a long-ass drive. We pack the essentials and get on our way in our 2 cars. Obviously going to change names for privacy's sake. Friends coming are Finn, Samuel, Christopher, Eric, Matt, and the girls are Marlo, Caitlin, and Tay. Prison was called Camp Bison Prison. It was Finn's idea to head out there since he was never one to decide what spooky place to explore next. Finn told us something along the lines of how the prison was closed in the 50s because the new highway that was built was too close to Camp Bison, could result in convicts escaping and hijacking a car. He also tells us some urban legends about the place. No one believes him since ghost stories are bull. I am in the car with Finn, Eric, Christopher, and Marlo. Samuel, Matt, Caitlin, and Tay are in the other car following us. Everyone knows how to get to the prison at this point. Each group has a map. Finn is driving the car I'm in, everyone is eating snacks and joking about how scary the prison is going to be. At some point, Matt, the one who's driving the other car, decides to be a dumbass and gets separated from our convoy. Me, Finn, and the rest of my group arrive at the car stop long before them. We waited for almost an hour. Reception was bad, so we couldn't call them to help them. Marlo wants to keep waiting for them. Eric and Christopher want to leave anyway and let the rest of them figure it out for themselves. There is a trail that needs to be walked in the bush before you get to the prison. We decide screw it and begin without them. We want to see the place in the daylight before night falls. Pull up to the place while it's still light out. Cool area, big field, and everything is overgrown. Nature is just gorgeous, untouched, very little industrial or animal noise, so the place is super peaceful. In the center of the field is the prison. Marlo suggests checking the outside first, but Eric wants to go straight up to the roof to see Matt and the others when they arrive. I'm fine with whatever and just end up getting dragged around. Christopher is taking pictures because he has an Insta photography account that only teenager girls and actual losers have. We end up walking through the halls of the place looking for the roof. Graffiti everywhere. Random slurs and vulgarity spray painted on the walls. Having a fun time. Finn, Marlo, Eric, and I arrive on the roof. Starting to get a little dark now, the sun just set completely. Finn and the rest are distracted by some benign stuff while I look for Matt, Caitlin, and the rest. See movement in the woods, assume it's them. Begin calling out their names and shouting over here, assuming they were lost. Movement stops. Everyone else is looking at me, wondering why I'm calling out to nothing. I try to play it off as a joke. I thought to myself that it was probably just a moose that looked like 3 people walking side by side. We got off the roof and met up with Christopher, who was still taking pictures of the forest line. He says he wanted to capture the elegant beauty of the untouched wilderness or some bull I can't remember. We force him to put away the camera and come have some actual fun in the prison. Dusk is settling and there's only a little bit of daylight left to set everything up and explore. We pitched a tent. Luckily we had it because if we gave it to the others we would have been screwed. There's no sign of them yet, but we think they'll find their way in the dark anyhow. After setting up camp in one of the bigger rooms in the prison, we use the last of the natural light to check out the building. What little light there is shining through the windows. Find this one big-ass room, very little graffiti in it. Decide it's the perfect place to make our mark. The room has trash and branches all around it. Definitely the dirtiest room in the building. Find a tiny animal skeleton and bones in the room. Assume some poor sick creature crawled into the room to die. Christopher takes pictures of it, proving how much of a weirdo he is. There's a huge pile of trash in the middle of the room that smells like feces. Looks like the kind of thing dumb teenagers like us would do. Finn has to go to the bathroom and takes a piss on the trash pile. Every dude laughs. JPG. Marlo doesn't think it's that funny. Take out some spray paint and write some funny stuff on the walls, add to the trash pile. Having fun when Eric starts acting a little weird. He's hanging back from the group and looking off in a different direction. We ask him what's going on. He comes back to us. Says something about hearing a weird noise off in the distance, can't describe it. He asks us if we heard anything, we all say no. He's worried it might be cops coming to bust us for trespassing. We just tell him to stop being a little coward and there's no way cops would come out this far. Try to convince him it was something else he heard. Eventually we make it to what we assume is the mess hall of the prison and explore around there. We spend so much time there that it goes fully dark and we turn on our flashlights and lanterns. Finn produces a couple beers and says now that the sun's down all the way, it's time to get wasted. Marlo says it's a bad idea. What if we have to run out for some reason and drive? All the other guys ignore her and we get hammered. Funtimes.png. We start walking back to the tent and camp we set up with the hopes of telling scary stories until we fall asleep. Christopher can't handle his alcohol and is stumbling around. Lightweight only had 4 tall boys. He weighs like 130 pounds, so we can't really blame him. We just keep him on the right path till we get back to the tent. On the way to the tent, Eric is still complaining about noises in the distance, but we shout at him to grow a pair and forget about it. Make it to the tent. Christopher is feeling better and Eric is calmed down. Finn is just having the time of his life. We chill in some small camping chairs we brought, gathered around a lantern, telling each other spooky stories and making up urban legends about the prison to try and frighten each other. Getting bored until we hear some shouts in the distance. Sounds like someone calling for us. They made it. JPG. Marlo gets up and rushes down the hall to a window in the direction of the voices. Upon closer inspection, it sounds like Matt, Samuel, and Catlin calling our names in the woods. Assume they're lost, Marlo calls out the window to them as loud as she can. Voices suddenly stop. Marlo tries pointing the flashlight at the tree line to see if she can see anything, but nothing is there. We stand at the window calling for them for a couple more minutes, but for some reason they don't say anything. Marlo wants to go outside and try and find them. Finn tells them that everyone's a little tipsy and it's a bad idea to be wandering around the woods at night in a place they could get easily lost in. Also, all of us don't want to go outside since it's cold out there with the wind. It's still pretty cold in the prison itself, but we keep all of our gear on to stay warm. We're standing by the window arguing and then hear one final cry from outside. Sounded a little closer, like Matt was shouting my name. Don't hear anything after that. Eventually convince Marlo to just chill and wait for them to come. We stay up next to the tent waiting for them, occasionally listening, but we never hear anything. Decide they must have gone back to the car for some reason, and we all go to bed since it's late. Sleeping with our gear on since it's so cold, but we're managing. Leave the lantern on the lowest possible setting like a nightlight for a feeling of safety. Eventually I fell asleep. Having trouble sleeping, occasionally wake up every now and then. Chalk it up to cold temperatures and uncomfortable sleeping area. Staying up for a bit, trying my best to make myself feel tired. Finn wakes up too and just plays on his phone at low brightness. Get bored and look through Christopher's camera. Pictures of birds, grass, and trees. Looks like he was trying to take a picture of something in the tree line. Can't make out what it is, but it looks similar to what I saw earlier. Quite a few pictures of it. Christopher was probably hell-bent on getting some cool animal pics. Camera roll ends with the pictures of the animal bones, still bored and can't sleep. Chilling with my eyes closed, on the verge of passing out when suddenly I hear noise in the building. Shoot up and open my eyes, look over to Finn, who gives me a look of confusion. Hear noise again, sounds like trash being moved around. Finn and I lock eyes. We think for a second it might be Matt and the others. Doesn't sound like them though, sounds more like one thing instead of a bunch of rowdy teenagers. We stay and listen as the sound gets louder and louder. Gets to the hallway our room is in, sounds of foot padding and sniffing. Finn types something on his phone to tell me something. Phone says, "Could be coyotes?" We heard that packs of coyotes live around here, but it's weird that just one would pull up to the prison. Finn and I stay quiet, listening for a bit, occasionally glancing at each other in worry and reassurance. The noises make their way into our room. The noise stops just outside the door to our tent. The thing begins pacing around our tent in circles. I look at Finn and he's looking at me with a terrified expression. If it's a coyote, it's clearly pissed at us, and if it's not a coyote, we don't know what it is. It sounds super light on its feet though, and couldn't weigh that much. Suddenly struck with a realization as to why Finn looks so freaked out. It's moving on 2 legs, not 4. You can tell by the pattern of the noise it makes on the ground. Immediately start quietly freaking out. Eric wakes up too, but understands the situation and doesn't say anything. Everyone is looking at each other for what to do, but we all just sit there as this thing circles our tent. Suddenly, Marlo wakes up and does possibly the dumbest thing anyone could have done in that situation. She says out loud, "Caitlin, Matt, is that you?" Silence for 2.5 seconds. Immediately hear the loudest eardrum bursting shriek I have ever heard in my life. Sounds almost like Caitlin's voice screaming. I only know what that sounds like because she screams at every little thing, but it sounds like a combination of that and a dying cat. Couple that with the fact that we just woke up and our ears were being destroyed by the volume, and we burst out of the tent, not even grabbing our equipment and sprinting down the hall to the exit. I turn back and notice Eric isn't with us and is still in the room. The shrieking is still going on and I call Eric's name. He comes running out faster than I've ever seen him run in my life. The 2 of us catch up to the other 3, and we run through the halls of the prison. Can hear things breaking, being knocked down not far behind us, the shrieking still going on following us. Finn is holding a flashlight along with Eric and we run out of the prison exit at Mach 6. The shrieking stays in the prison and doesn't leave as we run across the field and back to the path to the cars, running through the woods without even slowing down. Finn is practically dragging Marlo as she can't run fast at all. Christopher is having a hard time running, but at this point has slept off the drunkenness. We pile into the car with what little gear we had on us when we started running and throttle it down the road back onto the highway. Finn is driving like a madman but is still the least panicky out of the 5 of us. We reach an urban area after a while of driving and just sit for almost an hour as other cars and traffic pass around us. Marlo and Christopher are crying. Eric just seems perfectly still, staring off into space, glassy look in his eye. I turned to him and asked him what he saw in the room before he left to join us running. He turns directly towards me and has the biggest expression of horror I've ever seen. He isn't moving at all, almost looks traumatized, like he just watched his entire family get tortured to death. Finn calls Matt and the rest of them. They tell us they're at a motel. We drive to them and all pile into the room. They ask us what happened, explain the situation to them to the best of our ability. They told us they were late coming to the car stop spot and tried to make their way through the trail hoping to meet us at the prison. They got lost on the path there and started calling our names at the top of their lungs. Say they gave up looking for the right path and left before the sun went down because they didn't want to get lost in the woods in the dark. We told them we heard their shouts, but it was at like 1 in the morning. They tell us that's impossible since they left long before night fell. Everyone is really confused and exhausted, and we just pass out in the motel room. The next day we drove back to our town and we never talk about the situation again. Hang out with the gang less and less since we don't really go on spook adventures anymore after that. Eventually I fell out with them because I permanently associate them with that night. Years later, looking up at people who went to Camp Bison prison and they experienced eerily similar scenarios, not quite as horrifying as what happened to me, but still freaked me out when I saw them nonetheless. TLDR. Tried to spend the night in an abandoned prison and got chased out. After all this time, I really hoped that it could all have been explained with natural phenomena, but I don't know enough about nature to explain any of it. I hope you guys can. About a year after the event, I tried to talk to Eric again about what he saw when he was still in the room without us. He pretended like it didn't happen and refused to say anything else about it. I could try to get in touch with him and ask him his side of the story again if you anons want that.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.